Hey, welcome back to the channel. I'm Steve, your host. Today is the last video in our three-part series of building and weathering the Academy Panzer IV H. I'm going to show you what I did to weather it. I applied some washes and some pin washes. I think you'll be pleased with the result. Thanks for stopping by. You guys enjoy the video. Bye now. Okay, in this video we're going to be weathering the Panzer IV H. What I'm doing, I'm starting with an oil stippling of a raw umber into the lower hull. What I'm going to do is the hull that's the part of the hull that's closest to the ground is going to be the darkest, and then what I end up doing is just working my way up with lighter colors. It's going to be Naples yellow and maybe a little bit of white, but what'll happen is you'll see how it all blends together. There was a guy in the 90s who put out a book, Tony Greenland, and I'll pop a picture of the book on the page. What he recommended was, the suspension or the lower hull being darker than the rest of the kit. So I kind of take that sentiment with me, and that's what I'm trying to reproduce here. So you can see I've got the darker raw umber. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back in with some Naples yellow and just work it where the two colors meet. There'll be a blending there, and just work up to lighter on the lower hull. A lot of this is going to be covered up by the shirts and the side skirts, but whatever you see, if there's a panel missing or you're down low and you can see the suspension, you'll know that that there was some work done in there. I think the technique is pretty simple. Again, whenever you're working with oils, less you can go. It's easier to go from less to more than it is to put a lot on and subtract it. So find a happy medium and work it from there. As you can see, I'm pretty happy with the way this has come out. I've done both sides. There wasn't a need for you to see me do both sides. Same technique on the front of the hull and the rear. I didn't do anything on the bottom. This isn't a model that's going to show up at a contest where that'll need to worry about what the bottom looks like. Now what we're doing on the upper hull is we are putting a very thick soupy wash around things that are proud on the hull, like the splash guards, hatches, the edges of hatches, the edges of panels. And what I do is, it's a soupy wash. I just get it on there. I don't really worry about where it goes or how it ends up. It's not a pin wash. It's not a full wash. It's just, I don't know. I guess if you do laundry, it's an intermediate wash. But if you just follow along in the video, you can see how I apply it. And then later on, once this dries, I will come back and I'll back it off in the corners using some either Naples yellow or some white. So if you've got some music that you want to put on, it's an interesting tutorial. Have some music in the background, maybe a bit of U2. Me, I'm a Springsteen fan. I like U2 too. But just enjoy the video. You may notice I'm working on the front of the upper hull. I've already applied this technique to the aft hull, the engine deck, so you can get a kind of an idea where I'm going. And if you notice from the painting video, you could see a lot of brush strokes. But now that I'm stippling in, oil paints, the brush strokes have disappeared, or they're a lot less noticeable. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to set aside the upper hole to dry. I'm going to, well, just to dry out a bit. And then here with the side skirts, I'm going to apply the same technique. So while everything is drying, I'm going to apply a pin wash to the steel rollers, to the lower suspension units. It's just you can see it's in a Tamiya panel liner bottle. It's long since been used up, and really now I'm just using mineral spirits and raw umber. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of slap it on. It's the lower suspension, so I'm not really worried about precision, because my view is the lower suspension just went through a lot of muck and grime, and there really wasn't anything too precise about it. So that's where we're at now, and I'll slop this on and I'll let this dry. And I think this wash really brings out some of the detail in the road wheels, the drive sprocket, and the idler, because those once the side skirts go on, that's really all you're going to see of the lower. And what I end up doing, one of my finishing touches is I'll come back and dry brush that. It'll make some of the highlighted areas on the suspension units and the road wheels, they'll pop out a bit. It'll make the tires. It'll give the tires some definition too, and I think it adds to the model. A lot of people back and forth on dry brushing. I like it. Now, where we're at here, this is really the heart of the technique here. We've got the panel, the side skirts. They're outlined in a wash, a heavy wash of raw umber. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to come in with in this case it is Naples yellow, and we're just going to apply that in the center of the panel, in the lighter areas, and we're going to work our way out, pushing the wash of raw umber into the corners, into the panel lines, and almost creating shadows with it. Once we're done with this, you really won't see the thick raw umber that was initially applied to it. It turns into a shadow. So I'm just going to do one panel here. It works the same for all of them. I've got the rest of the panels, they have the wash on it, but for intents and purposes of this video, I'm just going to show you how to do it on one panel. And it's just a stippling motion. You want to be careful, because on the other side of these panels are the hangers. There's 3 different hangers, and you don't want to break those off. So just be careful of the amount of pressure that you're applying. But really, what you want to do is you're just grinding oil paint into the base coat. And I like to use a very stiff, short-haired brush. Dry. If you do this with solvent on it, really what you end up doing is you just end up pushing around the paint. So really, you want to make sure that the brush you're doing the stippling with is dry. And if you need to clean it to swap colors, clean it. That's fine. But really make sure it's dry, because you'll just create problems. As you can see, it's lightening the dark green and the brown. And now what I want to do is, I don't want to forget about the inside of the sherson. So my theory is that there was runoff, or there was discoloration from the attachment points where the welds were made. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of give the whole inside panel of a wash with raw umber, and then I'm going to clean out And then I'm going to clean out areas of the panel with a very clean, with some mineral spirits on it and a clean brush, and just kind of create streaking that would come from the attachment points and welds. And again, I'm just going to do this on one panel. It's the same for everything. You know, I think there's 10 panels on this. It'll be the same for the rest of them. So you can see here I'm using a dry brush with just a little bit of solvent on it just to remove the wash that's on there, and I'm creating streaks. Hopefully you can see that. And this is what it'll look like, and when you hang them, they'll look good on it, on the vehicle. And now what we're doing is, we're just going to go with straight white here, because what had happened was, the white was pushing back the the yellow was pushing back the raw umber, and it wasn't creating the lightened tones that I want. So I've got a bit of white, and when that interacts with the raw umber that's on there, you get a nice patina from it. So again, there's a stippling motion here. Be careful of your down pressure, because you don't want to break pieces off. You know, it's going to happen, but if you just keep in mind that the more pressure you apply, the more likely is you'll start busting pieces off. You should be okay. So we're working here in the turret ring. Hopefully you can see the lightening of not only the paint, you know, the yellow, but it's kind of blending in the brush strokes from the painted ambush scheme. You don't want this so heavy that you're actually starting to cover the colors. You can see the dots from the ambush scheme are still standing out. So just keep an eye on how much you're applying. Again, more is less. And now we're going to work into the front. We're working on the radio operator's hatch, and you can see this is a really good shot. You can see how we're just pushing it into the corners with just a little bit of white oil paint. And again, I'm using Winsor & Newton. It's a good quality paint. If you get a lesser quality paint, they seem to be a bit soupy, so you need to make sure if you're doing that, just to put them on cardboard for an hour or so, just to let all the linseed oil drain out of them. Again, now we're working into the driver's hatch, and in the areas in between the hatch, you can see the paint strokes in the green and the brown start to disappear. You can still see the ambush dots through paint. And now I'm just applying it. I'm just putting a little bit on the brush and just coming back in and working it in different areas. And again, this is pretty much seasoned to taste. However much you want to do it, you know, your okay may be different from my okay, but just do it in small steps. Don't put a lot of oil paint on at one time, little by little, and I think you'll be pleased with the results. Hopefully you can see how the technique is worked out around the turret splash guard. We've got the oil paint, you know, the raw umber pushed into the corners, and I think it really does make that pop. Now we're working on the front, a little bit more on the upper, and now we're headed down towards the bow, and we're going to just work it the same way. One of the things that a lot of modelers do, I don't do it just out of sheer laziness, is they seal in between different techniques before they go from the wash to say the stippling or the chipping and the weather. In between those steps, they will seal the model with a varnish so that the new technique doesn't detract from the old technique that's underneath it, if that makes sense. But for me, I don't do that. I think my results are still pretty good. So until I can really see a need for that, I don't do that. Now we're going to work our way up to the turret. Again, really just the same technique. The turret has a number of breakable items on it. You want to be careful when you're applying this technique to the side skirts. You've got some handles, you've got some hatches. Just be careful how you're handling your kit and how much pressure you're applying with the stippling. You'll notice on this. In none of the videos did I show how I applied the decals. These are kit decals. I needed to get another set of 402s out of the spares box just for the rear of the turret. What I do is I brush paint some, I believe it's Vallejo acrylic gloss, and I let that dry. I put the decals down with some solvent, hit it again with Vallejo acrylic gloss. Once it's dry, that'll seal that. I had sprayed this acrylic one time and it really gummed up my airbrush, so I brush paint it now just to where my decals are going. And again, if I gummed up my airbrush, that was probably more my fault than the product. I'm happy with the product, but I just brush paint it now. So really, again, what you want to do is you want to get it in areas, you want to do corners or weld seams, edges, just pockets of the vehicle on the construction of the vehicle where you think you'd see a shadow. And that's what we're doing here. So here we are on the side of the turret. Again, same thing. Just need to be careful here because the mounting points are pretty firm, but if you apply enough pressure, you'll end up breaking them off. So just be careful. Again, you want to do edges, hinges, the tops, bottoms of panels, where panels meet. And what you're doing is you're creating shadows. Again, this is the same kind of soupy wash we applied on the lower hull. Same thing. And now that we have the decals sealed, what I like to do is I like to get the decals on before the weathering process, and that way there's a bit of continuity on what the vehicle looks like dirt-wise and how the decals look. Because you don't want to weather up your model, then slap, very clean numbers on the sides. It just doesn't look right. The other thing I don't want to forget about is I want to work on the insides of the side skirts. Want to make sure they have a bit of weathering, because it's easy to forget about those guys because you really don't see them. But take a little time, do a little bit of weathering there, and I think you'll be pleased with the overall result. So I'm going to apply some heavy streaking on the inside. Then what I'm going to do at some point, come back with something on the brush, mineral spirits on the brush, just to pull a lot of it off. I just want to reinforce some of the shadows that I've created on the vehicle. So while the turret's drying, I've come back to the lower hull and I'm just using a bit of mineral spirits and raw umber in a very fine pin wash. I don't want to do a full wash because that'll upset all the coloring. So what I want to do is just get it in areas that I want to make sure pop. And here what I'm doing is I'm just, really just with a dry brush. I don't think I really have a lot of solvent on it because the wash is still active. It's still wet. So I'm just going to soak it up and just move it into the corners. So back here we're on top of the turret, and we are just going to apply that same stippling motion. Push the like I said, push the soupy wash we put down with raw lumber. We're going to push it into the corners and into the panel lines with a bit of white oil paint on a stiff brush, and we'll just apply the same technique that we were using on the lower. Again, you don't want it so thick where you're actually covering. What you're really doing is just applying a patina of white, and when it mixes with the remainder of the raw umber, you're getting kind of a darker, not so much white, because again, pure white just doesn't exist in nature. You're just getting a fading effect. It's covering up most of the paint strokes. As you can see now, I don't think you'd really notice that this was hand painted. So part and parcel with the painting technique, this really does make hand painting a viable option for you. So you can see around the turret, it's still a bit, not the turret, but the commander's cupola, it's still dark, and we'll come back with a bit of white, and we'll just, like I said, we'll just kind of season it to taste. We'll add just a little bit white till we get it the color we want, or the effect we want. Now we're heading over to the side skirts. Again, same technique, just be careful about how much pressure you apply, because with this, they're on there, but it's, you know, if you're banging away on it, you're gonna knock a piece off. And again, what you're doing is you're just kind of pushing the dark wash into the corners and into the panel lines, and you're lightening up the paint. You're kind of blending in the brush strokes from the paint job, and yeah, I think it's coming together. Decals on the back, 402, they came out of my spares box. You only get the turret sides, and most German vehicles had numbers on the back. So those numbers are a little bit bigger, but I don't think you can really tell the difference. Now what we're going to do is, as I mentioned before, we're just going to do a bit of weathering and streaking inside the turret skirts. You just don't want to forget about them, because if you stand over the model or you're looking from the side, you can see them. So what I'm doing is I'm using a reasonably wet, smallish brush, and I'm just creating streaks on the inside. Not really worried about doing any stippling in there. I just want to have some streaking, because I assume that a vertical plate would have streaking on both sides. Same thing as we did with the side skirts. I've enjoyed sharing these techniques with you. I'm going to give you a final reveal here, and thanks for stopping by.